See, coverage of the 2020 season grand finals continues here with me, Righty Night, joining me, the Czech Hall of Famer, Martin User. So good to have your company, Martin. So good to have your company around the world. That's right, I'm talking to you, not the rest of the other jackals in the chat, just you, my friend. Thanks for tuning in this weekend. It's been great to have your company. Martin, we've got one more round of standard, and I tell you what, it's a big one because Austin Bursavich, as you can see on your screen, he is poised to make the top 8. 8 wins means that he is locked. He doesn't have to play another game of Magic until tomorrow, if indeed he can win this match right here.
The way this works is the earlier you can get your 8th win, the better your tiebreakers are going to be coming into the top 8. So a pretty big match for Austin here, who can be our first person locked for the top 8 and ensure being on the play throughout the top 8 as well.
Now, if you're new to competitive Magic, welcome. By all means, welcome. It's great to have you. But this is not normal. It's not normal that we have a tournament where, getting to X number of wins locks you for the top 8. But it just so happens that the numbers break in a certain way for this tournament. That getting 8 match wins, it means that just basically you can't be overtaken and you are locked for the finals. So we're saving the players a bit of time by just giving them that express ticket all the way to the top 8 if they are skilled enough to get across the line with an 8th win. And that is exactly what Bursavich will be going for, but he's got to get past Patrick Fernandez here.
Look at this draw by Austin. Wow.
Yeah. Tell us about it. What's going on here?
At the beginning, it looked like a true mirror. Both players exchanging stomps on each other's edge wall innkeeper, but then Patrick missed their 3rd land drop, unfortunately, but luckily drew into his 3rd land right now, which allowed him to use the Beanstalk Giant. But Austin is just firing on all cylinders, like turn 1, edge wall innkeeper, turn 2 stomp, turn 3 bunkers giant, turn 4 Omnath. That's exactly how you want to start a game, and Austin even has a Beanstalk Giant here to get even more land drops, trigger Omnath even more times. He's going to be able to use that extra mana to grab something with Veil of Wishes.
This is real nasty. Look at this. Omnath going to get, that's all 3 triggers on Omnath this turn, and already Patrick Fernandez is just going to pack them up. Look at that. Yeah. Wow. Blink and you'll miss it. This is exactly what the Omnath decks want to do. That was lightning fast, Martin.
Yeah, Austin with basically a picture-perfect draw, and Patrick unfortunately stumbling that one turn, missing that 1 land drop. Basically, there's no coming back from it.
And now these players hit the sideboards. You can see they're playing very similar-looking lists. Omnath Adventures is definitely the du jour best deck in Standard at the moment, and you can see why. Starts like that are just basically unbeatable. But we're not going to see too much sideboarding take place here, Martin, are we?
Yeah, there isn't really a whole lot you can do with sideboarding in these decks. The sideboard is basically a bunch of one-offs for Veil of Wishes. So you have a lot of situational cards that you get with your Veil of Wishes when the time is right. But we saw both players bring in those Mystic Disputes in exchange for some copies of Brazen Borrower, which isn't exactly too good in this matchup because you don't really want to bounce your opponent's adventure cards back into their hand because they would be able to replay them, get even more value from it. And Mystic Dispute is great at countering the other player's Omnath.
Yeah, and you can see that Mystical Dispute in this potential opener here, but no, going to send it back. I like that. That's a disciplined mulligan. This one's a little better, I would have thought. And Bursavich happy with the hand that he's drawn as well. It's got Lotus Cobra. It's got Omnath in it. What more do you need, my friend?
Yeah, turn 3.
Game number 2.
Turn 3 Omnath potentially here for Austin, but we do know that Patrick has that 1 copy of Bone Crusher Giant, which is going to be able to take down the Lotus Cobra, which is going to be really important.
Yes, yeah, absolutely critical here. We'll probably see Mountain come into play, unless you want to play a tapped Shadow Skull Smashing. But I think, given the threat of the turn 2 Cobra here, it's really well and truly worth keeping Stomp up. Bone Crusher Giant is just a silly Magic card. It's because it's not the big splashy finisher or whatever. It is kind of flying under the radar a little bit, but it is one of the most played cards of this entire tournament, and with good reason. It's just the perfect marriage of both interaction and proactivity when it comes to finding. And we're seeing it here. Look at this nice piece of interaction to deal with the opponent's threats, but then it's also a threat in and of itself.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that Bone Crusher Giant is just secretly, or maybe not even so secretly, one of the best cards in Standard. It's like a clean 2/4/1. Sometimes you can even use it against creatures with protection. Because of the way it's worded, damage can be prevented. Sometimes you're playing a mono red deck, you're attacking with your 1/1 Fervent Champion, your opponent blocks with Cerulean Drake, and you just stomp them to the face, and all of a sudden the Drake just dies, even though it has protection from red. So it has a lot of uses, not just like something that deals with your opponent's, Lotus Cobra or Jewel Innkeeper, but also just like a 3-mana 4/3 is a pretty big beater. So even if you're playing against a deck that doesn't have small creatures, if you're playing against a control deck, having a 4-power 3-mana creature is not the worst.
Beanstalk Giants, another key piece of this Omnath deck, of course, in assembling 4 colors of mana. Surprisingly easy, actually, given that usually it's quite a task to get 4 colors of mana together. The Beanstalk Giant certainly helps there quite significantly. But here is Omnath, public enemy number 1, the John Dillinger of current standard, an Edgewall Innkeeper, the partner in crime here.
It's funny how good the mana base is in this adventure deck, even though you're playing 4 colors and you're playing so many basics. And even then your mana is great because you have all these Beanstalk Giants, Lotus Cobra gives you any color, you have the Triumphs, and it's just really easy to get all 4 colors. I've been very impressed by Austin's results in the last couple of years even. It seems like every tournament he plays in, he just easily top 8s.
Yes, indeed. Certainly quite a talent. And here is the Cobra. Followed up by a land, of course. And Lotus Cobra, a high-profile reprint from original Zendikar. Missed out on the Battle for Zendikar reprint, but it's back with a vengeance now. Really showing us what it's capable of here, this little snack.
Yeah, we don't have the original fetch lands that we did in Zendikar, like the Misty Rainforest and Arid Mesas, but we do have Evolving Wilds, and we do have Fabled Passage. So that's one of the ways that you can use in combination with Omnath and Lotus Cobra to get more of those landfall triggers.
So in comes Omnath, and we may see these Omnaths trade off here. Depends how much value you think you can get off of your Omnath compared to what you think your opponent can get off here. What do you think? I mean, this is a good attack from Patrick, right?
This is a really interesting spot. Yeah, I think Patrick was the first to get more value out of his Omnath, so I like the attack. If you're Austin, you're looking at your hand and you're thinking, okay, well, can I, get the second landfall trigger out of Omnath next turn to get the extra 4 mana? Because that would be extremely helpful to be able to play, a few more spells to try to get even on the battlefield. And I think because of that Escape to the Wilds, Austin is going to be very easily able to do that and make sure that he hits 2 land drops. He just needs to reveal a line in those top 5 cards.
All right, let's see what he can find here. Bursavich with plenty of resources still to play with. He's got that Escape to the Wilds and rips a fair bit of business off the top there as well, including that Fabled Passage.
Oh yeah, the Lucky Clover in hand too. This is gonna be a really good next turn for Austin here.
Yeah, of course, because all those adventure cards, they stick around for another turn, don't forget. So the Lucky Clover in hand means that we can really start to get some value off of them. There's Fabled Passage again. Omnath's partner in crime, and this means we're going to see the 3rd Omnath trigger for this turn.
Actually, it's going to be a really, really good this turn even, because Austin has access to 6 mana, which means he's going to be able to play that Lucky Clover and possibly use those 2 Bonecrusher Giants. One is going to deal with Omnath because it's going to get the extra copy from Lucky Clover, and the other one's going to be able to kill that Edgewall Innkeeper, which is Patrick's way to try to get some extra cards.
That is a lot. Look at this. That's huge, man. Lucky Clover, 2 mana for 4 damage here, and the party don't stop. There's another Bony G in the exile zone to that Escape to the Wilds. So here, yeah, I mean, you can look at Patrick's face. He's just like, yep, that's what happens. That is
just isn't a whole lot Patrick can do. It's just this is how how the cards lined up, and Austin just has a really, really strong draw here.
Yeah. Unfortunately for Patrick Fernandez, he really just does look like he's just going to have to eat it here. Poor bloke, but Bursavich with an incredible draw, and now can just sit back and wait for the opportune moment to fire off that Bonecrusher Giant. Can go after the Edgewall Innkeeper if he wants to play it safe, make sure that Patrick can't draw any more cards. But Austin really in a commanding position here. Can't be overstated how good his spot is right now.
Austin thinking here if he wants to use that Bonecrusher Giant to deal with Edgewall Innkeeper before Patrick goes into his main phase to possibly deny him some extra cards off of the adventure creatures. The advantage of keeping Bone Crusher on the other hand is that maybe if Patrick has something like another Omnath, then you would really be very happy to be able to kill it.
Right, off the Edgewall Innkeeper goes, and we're going to see Stomp upstairs as well. The copy going at the 1/1, and the original going at the face. And so now 4-3 waiting in the wings. One of the 3 Bone Crusher Giants that Bursavich has played this turn. Across comes another one for 4, but Bursavich isn't too worried about that. He's happy to take 4 damage on the chin. Of course, he's got that Omnath to make it up next turn. And look at this. We are off to the races now. Another Cobra off the top is going to continue to make sure that Bursavich has got all the mana that he may require. And he can just dump his hand out here.
Yeah, normally when you have some of these card draw engines or mana producing engines, you are usually not very happy to take a lot of damage, because that's the exchange normally that you get for investing your mana into something that produces more mana or draws you cards. But the fact that Omnath gives you 4 or possibly even 8 life in every cycle is just making that plan not very viable.
Yeah, that's right. If you keep a fetch land on the battlefield uncracked, you can wait until your opponent's turn if you need to desperately gain some life, because, of course, Omnath triggers not only in your turn, but your opponent's turn. So if it's the first land that's entered the battlefield during your opponent's turn, you gain 4 again. So a little niche play. We don't see it too often, but it is very useful. Here's Fae of Wishes, copied, of course, with the Lucky Clover.
Wow, and there's a Fabled Passage.
And Fabled Passage. Wow.
Yeah, to ensure that extra land drop for the Lotus Cobra and Omnath to produce even more mana. Yeah, this is a completely crazy turn for Austin.
It's so big, right? I mean, this Cobra is providing, as you say, extra mana in addition to the mana provided by Omnath here. So Bursavich can kind of go ham and just dump not only his hand onto the battlefield, but also the cards that are in the exile zone.
Yeah, Escape to the Wilds is like such a powerful card. Like when you have access to more mana, like all you need is just draw more cards, and the fact that Escape to the Wilds lets you see 5 new cards, you usually are able to find something like a Fae of Wishes, which combined with Lucky Clover gives you even more cards. You can get another Escape to the Wilds from the sideboard. So at this point, it's basically impossible for Austin to ever run out of cards.
Yeah, and this is typical. I mean, we saw this of the old Teamer Adventures list, and it's only gotten better since Omnath joined the fray. Now, here's another Omnath for Patrick off the top, and finds he's got a land, he's got a Brazen Borrower, so isn't quite out of it, but you have to think just on pure resources. Look at this. Austin's sitting on what is effectively now 8 cards in hand to the lone Brazen Borrower and a Forest on the side of Patrick Fernandez here. So Austin, well and truly in the driver's seat.
This is why Brazen Borrower is not great after sideboard. Like, it's just not good in this matchup. Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to bounce your opponent's Omnath? That just
bounce their Omnath, bounce their adventure creatures.
Yeah. Like, if you bounce Clover, they're just going to replay it for 2 mana, so that doesn't even get you any mana advantage.
Yeah, the Borrower, and as a 3/1, it's just not I mean, it's a good threat in reasonable terms, but against the like, you just can't race an Omnath with a 3/1 flyer. All right, Cobra makes a mana here. Look at all these giants waiting, ready to spew onto the battlefield.
The way this matchup goes is usually whoever is the first person to get a Lucky Clover, or if it's just one person, the other just doesn't have it, then that person just has a huge advantage.
Bursavich now taking his time, considering his next move. He's certainly got plenty of options. Most of them involve putting enormous monsters onto the battlefield. Is there enough here for a Shatterskull Smashing to clear the board?
I believe so. I believe Austin does have access to that.
Okay, yeah, well, we're going to see Shatterskull Smashing here. X equals 7? No, just X equals 4 to kill the Omnath. Okay, that's fair enough.
Austin is playing with fire with that rope. He has 0 timeouts left, so he probably had like 1 or 2 seconds left to make that play.
Oh yeah, wow, none left in the bank here. Yeah, so he's having to pick up the pace a little bit. And chooses not to get rid of that Bone Crusher Giant, instead going for Edgewall Innkeeper into a Bony G of his own. And now, is it time to trade the Omnath off?
No. You're very happy to keep Omnath in play. It's gaining you life. It's gaining you more mana. Like, you never really want to trade it off unless like you really have to, and you're low on life or something.
Yeah, you may as well just hold. Oh no, okay, we're going to come in for this attack. No, okay. Yes, potentially. All right. Well, even the Cobra's getting into some here.
Okay.
Quite an attack. Brazen Borrower bouncing the Omnath. That's a little better than usual because, of course, it just can't be replayed this turn. That saves a little bit of life, and the Cobra gets chomped up by the Bone Crusher Giant. The Giant doing its best Mongoose impression, just eating up that snake. But there's a blank ski off the top for Patrick. He finds a land. That's not what he wanted to see. So it's just a lone Brazen Borrower for him. And that is it. Whereas Austin sitting pretty. Omnath.
Yeah, Austin has access to so many cards. At some point, he can even play the Fae of Wishes, bring it back to his hand, cast Granted again, take that, escape to the wilds from his sideboard, and keep the ball rolling. At some point, Austin's also going to be able to just play the Beanstalk Giant and get Kazu's Fury out of his sideboard, and possibly just finish off Patrick without even attacking.
Yeah, just fling something straight at the face here. And of course, yeah, Fae of Wishes is going to ultimately allow you to recycle some of those cards in hand to go and search something up from the sideboard. So there's the attack and the trade. And another land here. I guess these Mystical Disputes, you're happy enough to discard them to the eventual Fae of Wishes, just because you know you're not going to get any value out of them.
Yeah, pretty much. Dispute is a great card early in the game, but most of these decks they have a very easy way to just put more lands into play with all these Beanstalk Giants, especially when you're copying them with Lucky Clover. So the longer the game goes, the less powerful cards something like Mystical Dispute is going to be.
And with that concession, Austin Bursavich is our first player in the top 8 of the 2020 season grand finals. Chucks up the horns there. There's a bloke who's very happy with himself as well. Congratulations to our first top 8 competitor, Austin Bursavich, after a very convincing, a very commanding performance there, Martin, with what is ultimately quite easily the best deck in the format.
Yeah, well played by Austin. He's always piloting the best decks in the format. He's piloting them well, and it's no surprise to me that he just locked up the top 8 as our first player.
All right, well, congratulations to Austin. Day 9 was standing by to get to catch up with Austin, so let's hear what Austin had to say after the win.
We weren't sure when it was going to happen, but eventually there had to be the first player to get into the top 8, and that player is Austin Bursavich. Congratulations, Austin.
Thanks, Sean.
I want to ask about the Omnath Adventures Mirror. I know a lot of people don't like playing mirror matches, but what's the sort of edge you're looking for, given that that's going to be a pretty substantial portion of the rest of the tournament?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the mirror is actually really interesting and intricate. I mean, it might not be a ton of fun, the games, but every single game, you have so much to consider. Even when you're ahead on mana or you're ahead on cards, they can get under you in some way, and you just have to be worried about so many things at all times. So
right.
I think it's a great mirror match skill tester, but sometimes they just have Clover into Beanstalk. It's too much, but anyway, sure, it's good.
And I want to ask the non-magic question that, I mean, are you doing okay with respect to the hurricane? Because I know that you live in the area. I saw you posting about it in the player chat about, hey, if things go wrong with my power with regard to the matches, can we reschedule? Like, are you doing all right?
Yeah, so we got really lucky. I live in Baton Rouge, and, it shifted west a little bit. So it unfortunately hit Lake Charles and then again, which they just had a hurricane. So we got some pretty bad winds, and a lot of places around here are out of power. But luckily, our little section didn't lose power, and we just had, some leaves and branches fall, but nothing major and not too much flooding or anything. So we're fine.
That's a relief to hear. I really hope that you're able to keep staying safe. And given that you are now 8-1, that automatically qualifies you for top 8. You're automatically 11-1 now. What are you going to do with the rest of your free evening?
Yeah, I honestly don't know. I was expecting and hoping to play some historic because, I love our historic deck, and now we got to go to standard in the top 8. But I mean, obviously, I'm happy to be there. But yeah.
Yeah, poor Austin. You don't have to play any more games.
Exactly.
You don't have to play any more historic. You're in the top 8. Yeah, I know. Where you will be playing with that standard deck in the top 8. Congratulations again, and let's head back to the casting deck.
And our coverage of this event continues, of course, my friends. You're not going to want to go anywhere. Don't miss a minute of it. We're going to take a quick break, and on the other side of it, we will be back with Autumn Burchett and Alvaro Fernandez Torres. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you back here for more coverage of the 2020 season grand finals after this.
This will change Zendikar forever. Careful.
Welcome back to coverage of the 2020 season grand finals. Riley and I joined by the Czech Hall of Famer Martin User. So good to have your company as we continue our exploration of both standard and historic. We are finishing off our standard rounds for today at least. And we're going to check in with Autumn Burchett and Alvaro Fernandez Torres. We've got Gruul Adventures up against Omnath Ramp. This is not Omnath Adventures. And Martin, I know that both you and I are big fans of Embercleave here, but it'll be interesting to see how the Gruul deck goes up against the I guess the 1.0 version of the Omnath deck, the Ramp version with Genesis Ultimatum.
Yeah, if you're Autumn and you're playing this red-green aggro deck with Embercleave, you are much happier to see the Ramp version across from you rather than the one with Lucky Clover.
Yeah.
Because the Ramp version, especially Alvaro's version, is heavily tuned for the mirror with 3 copies of Mystica Dispute in the main deck. So we see that Alvaro is interested in fighting the other Omnath decks by possibly countering them with Mystica Dispute and also these Genesis Ultimatums. And the difference between those two decks is that the Ramp deck does not really interact very well. The Adventures deck can just play, turn 2 Lucky Clover and then hit you with the Bone Crusher Giant, killing 2 of your creatures. All of a sudden, you have no board, and it's really hard to come back from that. This version, the Ramp version, has a lot of expensive cards. Escape to the Wild, Genesis Ultimatum, Cultivate. So while you're setting up for these expensive cards, you're ramping, you're not really affecting the board.
Yeah.
So outside of those 3 Bone Crusher Giants, Alvaro does not have any other interaction, really, outside of that one Ugin at the top of the curve and some of the Spikefield hazards if he decides to play them instead of the possible end.
Rough start here for Autumn, who has mulliganed to 5. Has at least got a reasonably decent opener, curving an Edgewall Incap into a Brushfire Elemental. In for 2, and Alvaro down to 18. Got a nice full grip here.
That's actually a pretty good opening hand. Like if you consider, like, sure, being on 5 is pretty bad, but at least this hand has a plan. Unfortunately, mulliganing a lot does not work very well with landfall because you actually do need those extra lands. Whereas normally, if you're playing an aggressive deck, you don't really mind going to 5 because you're just usually pretty happy to work on 2 or 3 lands. But Autumn does have two creatures that Edgewall Innkeeper can draw them some extra cards. The Primalite's going to be able to deal with that Lotus Cobra or possibly be safe to deal with an Omnath later. And there's an Embercleave waiting in their hand. So yeah, it's an unfortunate mulligan to 5, but this hand has a plan and a pretty decent one too.
Now, I really like the pathways. Obviously, the design's very elegant, and it's very cool to see how they've impacted Standard so far. But here, is how you can see they're just so much worse in certain situations than other dual lands that we've had in the past. Because look at this, right? You've got to play the pathway, it makes either red or it makes either green. And with Embercleave and Gemrazor in hand, and with one red land and one green land on the battlefield, you kind of have to commit yourself to one or the other here or now. And that's why, Stomping Ground, or even something like a Carplusian Forest, as you said, just does offer more options into the later game. Despite the fact the pathways are undoubtedly just very, very cool, well-designed cards, they do come at a bit of a cost every now and again.
It's a really cool design, and when Mark Rosewater posted one of those articles before Zendikar came out saying that there is a new cycle of dual lands, I was thinking like, what could that be? Like they have made
what
so
have they got
many
left?
different. Yeah. What is there left, right? And I didn't see this coming, but it's definitely a really, really cool design.
I think, double face cards since their debut in Innistrad have always been a fan favorite, and there are certainly plenty of them, even from back then. Huntmaster of the Fells, Garruk Relentless, cards that I remember playing with. That was back when I started, so I remember them very fondly. And since then, we've had stuff like Jace Vryn's Prodigy, a bunch of other cards that are sort of self-contained as flip cards that kind of tell a story. But I like the modal double face cards a lot, and you've already talked about today how good they are in Limited, and I think that they've had great applications in Construct. I'm looking forward to seeing more of them. I know we're getting more in the down the pipeline in the coming sets as well, so it'll be cool. It'll be cool to see. I think it's a good direction for the game to take.
Yeah, it's a thing that I think this might have just solved the one problem in Magic that can get you frustrated. Like sometimes not drawing that third land or drawing too many of them, that can be a frustrating way to lose. This is a way to solve that. Like now you have the option of playing 12 lands, but in reality you can have 28. So yeah, I look at that right source for Autumn with Embercleave, and even though they built to 5, they had a plan. They executed the plan. They needed to draw that extra red source for Embercleave, but that's what happened.
And it comes back to what you were saying before, Martin, about the Adventures deck having a lot more interaction, a lot more ways to sort of pump the brakes on a game that's threatening to spiral out of control in the hands of the Gruul player here. And Autumn was really able to just jump on the fact that Alvaro was just kind of spinning his wheels, doing not very much, and never really posed any real resistance to what their game plan was. And obviously Embercleave is just going to win games. Embercleave is just, it's probably, is it the third most powerful card in the format?
It's definitely way up there, yeah. Embercleave is something that makes the aggro decks really strong. On the other hand, it is something that can be dealt with pretty easily, right? You can just play sweepers, you can deal with the creatures, you can play spot removal, so like something like Sed's deck with a lot of 1/1 removal and counter magic that doesn't really worry about Evercleave too much. So it is very strong, but it can be dealt with.
All right, a decent looking hand here for Alvaro. Got that Lotus Cobra, although a lot of lands, but still, you can maybe cycle that Shredded Sails into something here. I don't think you mulligan this.
Yeah, normally if you have 5 lands and you're playing an aggressive deck, you're very often just throwing that back. But this is a Ram deck where you're trying to cast expensive cards. You're trying to cast Ugin, Genesis Ultimatum, Escape to the Wilds. So a hand with 5 lands and Lotus Cobra, especially considering you have 2 fetch lands, it is a pretty decent hand. You're not too happy to open on exactly this one, but you know that you have a lot of expensive cards in your deck, so this is a fine keep.
And then Elder Gargaroth can come down a little earlier than expected as well. There's the Lotus Cobra. And with 2 fetch lands in hand, as you say, it's going to be very useful, were it not for this stomp that takes it out of commission here.
Autumn, recognizing the power of Lotus Cobra, does not want to let Alvaro, cast an Omnath possibly next turn.
Yeah.
So instead of running the Bushfire Elemental out there, they decide to get rid of the Cobra, which absolutely makes sense.
And it was a very wise decision ultimately, as you can see that Alvaro ripped the Omnath just in time and would have been able to deploy it last turn had Autumn not taken a more interactive approach to it. Thunder and Rebuke in hand for Autumn as well, so when the Omnath comes down, there is a clear answer to it. So it'll be interesting to see now what Autumn does this turn.
Exactly. Autumn with all the answers here. Normally you would absolutely hate putting something like a Shock in your deck against this Omnath deck because it's just a card that trades with Lotus Cobra, but if your opponent doesn't have it, then I have this one horrible card that doesn't really do anything against the rest of their deck. But the fact that Shock is on this Bonecrusher Giant, which also has a 4/3 body, that makes it into a really, really powerful threat. And yeah, this Thundering Rebuke is going to be extremely important at getting rid of the Omnath, not allowing Alvaro to really leverage those fabled passages and get extra value out of Omnath.
And in addition to that, this is a big attack here. Brushfire Elemental is going to get in for 5. Bone Crusher Giant coming in for another 4 as well, because there's that Fabled Passage going to fetch a mountain and burn this Omnath away. So Burchett really just going straight to top gear here. They are getting stuck in.
Yeah, this is a big attack, yeah. And then next turn, you even have that Primal Might that if you do draw another land to make your Brushfire Elemental bigger, you would be able to deal with that Greater Gargaroth, Elder Gargaroth as well.
And there
Primal
is the
Might is really,
Gargaroth.
really strong in this deck. Ooh,
Oh, another Fabled Passage off the top. Oh, another Fabled Passage off the top. How you like them apples? How you like them apples, Alvaro Fernandez Torres? What a beating. This is premium next day delivery beatdown service brought to you by Autumn Burchett here with Primal Might. Going to take care of this 6/6 before it gets the chance to block or do anything. And I think, is that just game?
This is a lethal attack, yeah. I really like what Primal Might does in the red-green deck. It's so strong, and like even against decks with no creatures, you can just use that as sort of a big fireball.
Man.
Yeah, wow.
Wow, look at that.
fast.
Oh my goodness. Again, Autumn Burchett just going from strength to strength. And now, the rest of Autumn Saturday is just win and ins. With 7 wins, they have positioned themselves to only need 1 more to join Austin Bursavich in the top 8. And with a commanding performance like that, the wind is definitely in Autumn's sails. Right now, however, we're going to take a quick break. We've got more Magic coming your way from this round, more standard action for you to enjoy. So do stick around, my friends. We'll be back momentarily. We'll see you back here very soon.
You can choose your deck, but you don't get to choose who you play it against. But what if you could?
The Grand Finals competitor I'd most like to face is Luis Scott Vargas. He's always been one of my favorite players. I've enjoyed watching his videos, listening to his podcast, playing his decks, and I really love that he tries to bring a spirit of fun whenever he's doing anything Magic related. He and I are both kind of pranksters at heart, and I just think there's some resonance there. So I want to play him, and I want to crush him.
The player I would like to face is Rafael Levy, because at the Prior to Finals, round 14, we played an intense match, 3-game match, where I played so bad. I lost any opportunity to make top 8, so I want to face him again and redeem myself.
Where I want to play and beat most at the Grand Finals, I'm gonna go with Luis Scott Vargas. I've yet to play him in a high-level Magic tournament, and the only thing we get to play against each other was in Among Us, so looking forward to that.
The Grand Finals competitor I'd most like to play against and defeat is definitely Gabriel Nassif. Every time I play against Gab, then we just have these awesome matches. He's ahead in our lifetime stats, our head-to-head, including the finals of a Pro Tour and the top 8 of a Pro Tour. So, yeah, it's got to be Nassif.
Actually hired Christoph as a coach to help me prepare for the Mythic Invitational, and of course, coaching worked very well. But I think it would be a fantastic story if I were to face him in an important match of the Grand Finals, almost no matter how it went.
Un jugador que me gustaría enfrentar en un partido importante sería Seth Manfield, porque tenemos una muy linda rivalidad que viene desde hace bastante, así que sería muy agradable volver a cruzarme con él y ganarle.
Welcome back to live coverage of the 2020 season Grand Finals, my friends. So good to have your company. Riley Knight joined by a good friend of mine, the Hall of Famer Martin. Sorry, excuse me. Just pick up that name I dropped there. Oh, sorry about that, everyone. All right, we're going to get stuck in with another standard matchup here. We've got Ken Yukihiro versus Riku Kuma Guy. Both of these players on Omnath Adventures, and I know that many people will be... Riku Kuma Guy, he was the People's Champion. He was playing Mono Black in that previous tournament. He was swimming against the tide, Martin, but he seems to have fallen to the dark side as well. And he's on 4-color Omnath Adventures here.
Yeah, he did qualify with an unusual choice in a teamer Reclamation Field with his Mono Black aggro deck. But for this tournament, he decided to, go safe. And he is playing Teamer Adventures in Standard and Jund Sacrifice in Historic. So the 2 proven decks rather than going Rogue again.
These 2 decks played by these 2 different Japanese players here, broadly similar. The only real difference is that Kuma Guy has actually chosen not to play Lovestruck Beast, instead playing the full 4 copies of... Oh, sorry, only 3 copies of Brazen Borrower, and got Giant Killer as well, and an extra land, all the way up to 27 lands. But apart from that, no huge surprises for either of these two players. Their sideboard's also looking reasonably similar, although Yukihiro's... Have you seen the extremely hot technology in Yukihiro's sideboard, Martin?
The shredded sails?
Oh, it's not the Shredded Sails I'm talking about, my boy. It is the Drannith Magistrate.
Oh, Drannith Magistrate. Okay.
Now, Drannith Magistrate, of course, a white 1/3 that says you can only cast spells from your hand, which happens to be very, very good against adventures.
That's true.
And as an asymmetrical effect, so much of the time we call them hate bears. These are white 2-drops like Thalia that tend to have some kind of hateful or taxing effect on. They change the game rules a little bit. Lean and Arbiter is another good example. But unlike most hate bears, this one is asymmetrical. It only affects your opponents. And so Drannith Magistrate may actually have an impact in this very matchup here, as Riku Kuma Guy is, of course, playing adventures. But right now, looks like plan A for both players. We've got Omnath on one side, we've got Escape to the Wilds on the other, and double lucky Clover is huge here for Yukihiro.
Yeah, this is exactly like what we saw earlier in the game that Austin Bursavich won. Like, if you are the one with Lucky Clover in this matchup, your opponent doesn't have it, it's such a huge advantage for you. And we're gonna see Ken really get the all the value out of these 2 Lucky Clovers.
Triple Beanstalk Giant off on the side there, although I think one's already been cast for Fertile Footsteps there. But those Beanstalk Giants, they basically replace themselves on mana, Martin. So, like, if you've got 2 Lucky Clovers out, you cast a Fertile Footsteps, you get to put 3 untapped lands into play, which means that, at that point, I mean, they say you got to spend mana to make mana, but in this case, you do not. You get that 100% rebate. It's the card the stores love. Go ahead, sorry.
Speaking of people cutting Lovestruck Beasts from their adventures decks, as someone who likes to play aggressive decks and like the Evercleave decks, I really like to hear this because Lovestruck Beast is usually the card that makes you stop attacking because it's just too big. Like 3 mana 5/5 usually stops the attacks. So I'm for one very grateful that the adventure players are deciding to cut them from their decks to be a little bit better for the mirror matches.
You specifically love to see it. Specifically, you, Martin, you
Yes.
love to see it. Yeah,
exactly.
Well, this is going to be a big turn here for Yukihiro. Yukihiro, a bloke who's known to always mix things up a little bit. He's always got a little bit of spice, a little bit of tech to share with the world. And
He's my favorite deck builder in the world, probably. He always comes with like some crazy looking decks or something new, something unexpected, and he also almost always makes it work too. It's not just like he brought a brew but didn't really do all that well. No, he usually brings something of his own creation and still does well with it.
Look at this. If you cast another Fertile Footsteps, you can only get 2 more lands.
Yeah.
Oh, my heart bleeds for you, Ken Yukihiro. You've run out of basics to fetch with your Fertile Footsteps. Oh, look at that. I mean, the sympathies of the entire Magic community go your way, my friend. Because now he can't even cast this Beanstalk Giant on the way back, right? It just fizzles. No, it doesn't. Oh, no, it doesn't fizzle because you just get up to. Yeah, of course. Never mind.
And Ken getting some insane land advantage here. With those Beanstalk Giants and those Lucky Clovers. So this is looking really good for Ken as long as he can draw something that is going to let him see more cards. So something like Escape to the Wild, something like Veil of Wishes. Maybe an Omnath, like those would be the ideal cards to draw into right now.
Just going to start drawing a bunch of cards with Edgewall Innkeeper as well. Got another Edgewall Innkeeper to play, should he so choose. Otherwise, can just play out this 5/5. You talked about its defensive capabilities here, but with Edgewall Innkeeper, with Heart's Desire, Lovestruck Beast can certainly get very busy, get real scrouty row.
Ken has an interesting option, like he can deploy the 5/5. And use his mana a little bit better. The other option is to just play the Edgewall Innkeeper and hold up that Bonecrush Giant mana, so that if Riku plays something like an Omnath, you can respond to some of the triggers to make sure that the opponent doesn't get more of those triggers and more extra mana, and they're not going to be able to do some free stuff.
Goes for the 5/5, which draws a card, of course. With that Edgewall Innkeeper, it's going to be free to attack next turn. There's also another one in hand on the bench, ready to come in to ensure that the Lovestruck Beast can get frisky.
I think Ken is up to like 13 lands in play, and it's like turn 6 or something. How crazy is that?
Oh, it's bananas. I mean, I'm a rusted on ramp player, and even this is is a little too much. It's offending my delicate sensibilities. I mean, there's ramping, Martin, and then, whew, there is... this is sort of, for me, it's getting into the ice cream for breakfast territory. It sounds amazing, and then you do it for a couple of days, like, all right, okay, I'm going to go back to my cornflakes, I think. Here's a granted now. Get 2 cards out of the sideboard.
Importantly, Ken also drew into his copy of Fair of Wishes, so he's going to be able to either possibly close the game soon with a Cuzzo's Fury and a Beanstalk Giant, or maybe get like a Escape to the Wilds to start seeing more and more cards.
Now, Storm's Wrath obviously got rid of the Innkeeper there in addition to that 4/3, but it's not doing a huge amount against the 5/5 Lovestruck Beast, which can get straight back in there thanks to I mean, the Lovestruck Beast, he moves on pretty quick, honestly. Like, he'll get a crush on someone, and then eventually be like, okay, that one's gone. Oh, here's a new one. Here's an Edgewall Innkeeper for me to fall in love with, and gets it straight back in there for 5. Not a picky companion, the Lovestruck Beast.
At this point, I think Ken just has lethal next turn, and he's going to be able to even make sure that nothing can happen to him by getting a negate. Like at this point, he has 13 or 14 lands, so he can get the Cthulhu's Fury from his sideboard and use that in combination with the Beanstalk Giant, and the Bone Crusher Giant also in his hand equals 6 more damage because he has the 2 Lucky Clovers.
Now, I've just been told that we are going to jump ahead here to game number 3. We do have some time pressure at our back, so we're going to speed things up a little bit here and head over to game number 3 so we can show you the conclusion of this match. We do apologize for jumping forward like that, but the tournament marches on, and we do want to keep pace with the steady march of time here. So we're going to jump into game number 3 here of this Ken Yukihiro and Riku Kuma Guy matchup. We appreciate your understanding, my friends. It's great to have your company once again for coverage of the 2020 season grand finals. You're in the booth with me, Riley Knight, the mouth from the south, as no one calls me. I tried to get that one going, but it never really did. And Martin User, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Nope. You know what? I'm just going to put those nicknames on the back burner, and we'll circle back to them later on. Game number 3 here between these two players. You can see tied up at 1-1, both of them at 5-3. So respectable records here, Martin, as we head into the home stretch. They only need 3 more wins to make that top 8.
Yeah, normally if you're 5-3, you're thinking, okay, well, my tournament is going all right, but it's not just like I'm not really up there, in the top 8 or something. Here, with only 32 players in the field and cutting down to top 8, like being on 5-3 is perfectly reasonable. Like you still have a pretty decent chance at making the top 8, especially if your tiebreakers are good.
All right, a mulligan here for Yukihiro, but still a very, very decent looking hand. He's got that Lucky Clover, he's got that Fertile Footsteps, and most importantly, he's got Omnath, of course.
This is a perfect looking hand for Ken. Exactly what you want. I believe Ken is going to be on the play because I think he won that game 1 unless something crazy happened. So Ken going to lead with that turn 2 Lucky Clover. Exactly what you want to have on turn 2 in any matchup, not just the mirror. And then the Beanstalk Giant getting him again some nice mana advantage, and that Omnath to start attacking.
Mulligan here, and let's hope for Kuma Guy's sake that his hand is looking half as good as Yukihiro's here, because if you mulligan to 6 and you end up with a hand like this, whew, don't mind if I do. Another Lucky Clover off the top as well.
Very nice start for Ken.
And that's why Martin User gets those coverage big bucks, because of analysis like that. Second Lucky Clover off the top. Oi.
Wow, yeah, this is a very hot looking hand from Ken. Riku is going to need a clover of his own. Okay. Now we have a game.
And we've got a game here. So now we're going to see a Fertile Footsteps into 2 lands into another Lucky Clover. See Pathway come down for white mana. And I imagine one of the lands that this gets, of course, will be an island.
And this lines up perfectly for Ken. This lines up perfectly for Ken to get the 2 lands out of his deck and still be able to play that Lucky Clover. Like the extra land advantage from Beanstalk Giant if you have Clover out is just so busted.
So
like Ken is up to 5 lands in play. His opponent has 2.
Yeah, and the fact that they come into play untapped as well, so you can utilize them if you've got something else in hand to play is just enormous here.
Ken can just go aggressive, even if he doesn't really, draw any more gas. He can just drop that Omnath next turn and then play that Beanstalk Giant as a 7/7 the turn after that. So he can just go aggressive without really needing any more extra cards.
Now this is interesting. Going after those Lucky Clovers there is going to pump the brakes on the adventure portion of this deck, but certainly he doesn't have anything to say about Omnath. Oh
wow!
Oh my goodness me! Oh. Wow, a Fabled Passage off the top. Nothing to do with it, of course. So, I guess you could play the second Lucky Clover there, but no real reason to this turn.
Yeah, I think I like this play by Ken a lot. Like he decided to save that Fabled Passage for like a turn where he draws something like an Escape to the Wilds or maybe
Fate of Wishes. Yeah,
Fate of Wishes, exactly, to be able to really use that extra mana for some good effect. And again, this Brazen board just doesn't look all that great in the mirror. Like I get it, there's not a lot of cards in the sideboard you can actually bring in because you have you have all these one-offs for specific situations, but Brazen Borrower in this matchup, there's just nothing to bounce.
That's the thing. Like you're either bouncing an adventure creature with like, sure, I'll just replay it again and get more value, or you're bouncing the Lucky Clover, like, sure, I'll pay 2 mana to do this, or you're bouncing Omnath, you're like, great, I'll draw an extra card. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's really just not. There's no case with the with Petty Theft where you're thinking, yeah, wow, I really got him, didn't I? I really got him.
And like the body is not that relevant either because first of all there's Bonecrusher Giant in the matchup, and second of all the 3/1 flyer matches up really badly against 1/4 Fate of Wishes, which also has flying and can block it very easily. So it's not even like I decided to keep them in because they can put a lot of pressure on the opponent. It's a flyer, it goes through Omnath. It's just not all that great.
So here's an Innkeeper, and immediately followed up with a Beanstalk Giant, which will replace itself thanks to the Innkeeper trigger.
Yeah, and Ken did not really draw any of those, Fate of Wishes, Escape to the Wilds kind of cards that would let him see more cards and kind of just like never run out of gas anymore. But he does have a really strong board. Like he has a 7/7 in play that's going to be pretty hard to deal with by Riku unless he drops his own 7 land and plays his own Bonecrusher Giant. In that case, they would be able to trade. But so far, it's definitely Ken with the advantage if we had an advantage bar.
I mean, right from the beginning of this game as well, it's been all Ken all day. Sitting pretty here. Now Kuma Guy will have to find some way to get his snoot back above water here because he really is going to go under otherwise.
So some mana is being tapped. It looks a little bit like tapping either 3 to cycle a Triumph or 5 to play Escape to the Wilds. Oh, Fate of Wishes. Okay. Yeah, like you don't want to be behind on board and casting these cards that are either drawing you more cards or letting see more cards, because I don't know if there is anything really all that great in the sideboard that's going to let you deal with the 7/7. Sure, that red cap melee is going to be able to deal with Omnath, but we know that Ken has a backup one in his hand, so that's not really going to do all that much. And Riku only has access to 2 more mana after that, so he is going to be taking a lot of damage still.
Red Cap Melee takes care of the 4/4, but of course there's another Omnath waiting in the wings in hand here for Yukihiro, and it's going to be played straight away. And of course the land to immediately trigger it as well. And that Shredded Sails. Now this is a good answer for the opposing Clover here, and this is one of the reasons we see the Shredded Sails played, is because it is such a useful and versatile answer to Lucky Clover. I mean, at very worst, it cycles away. It can destroy a Terror of the Peaks. It can go after Brazen Borrower potentially as well. But I mean, just the opportunity cost of playing this deck this card is so low just because it cycles like that. So
Riku is just too far behind, and unfortunately for him, he does not have that 7th land, which would allow him to at least play the Fate of Wishes here, which would serve as a blocker to maybe get those 2 more turns when the Elspeth Conquers Death is going to trigger and bring something back. And there's a Bonecrusher Giant off the top, but that's it.
Bonecrusher Giant is more than enough here for Yukihiro to seal the deal and move 1 step closer towards securing top 8 at 6-3. Only 2 more wins needed for Yukihiro, but Kuma Guy still in it to win it. Congratulations, however, to Ken Yukihiro, a beloved hero to many. And it's good to see that he is still firing on, if not all of the cylinders, at least a great many of them. That is that, my friends, for coverage of this round, and indeed coverage of Standard for today. We are all done ski with Standard, but the good news is that we now move into Historic, of course, where Omnath certainly has made its presence felt, but not to the same extent. So we are going to see some very interesting, some wild decks ready to be let off the leash. So do stay with us, my friends. We're going to go back to the desk very briefly, and after that, we will be back with Marshall and Paul for Historic. So stick around. We'll be back with more live magic after this.